This is the evolution of fatherhood. My name's Shane. I'm here to talk to you today on another experience of spiritual awakening that happened when I was in my 30s. And when I think about this time, and I'm sure there's some more work to do. I think in astrology, they talk about your Saturn return is what it's called. When every 7 years the Saturn comes back around, so there's a 7-7. Like most kids may have a spiritual, their character is really set by the time they're 14. They might have a flip, like they might be a perfect child up until 12, 13, and then they hit 14 and they flip and they start being really difficult to deal with. And there's a planetary thing that happens in their signs where they come, where all the lessons that they have learnt, or maybe haven't learnt, or didn't learn at the time, will have to come back and learn them again. So then you've got your 28, your 28 to 30 is your Saturn return again, which is your double Saturn return. So you'll find generally people get married when they're in their 28 to 30. They might have babies when they're 28 to 30. There's a big life shift that happens around that 28 to 30-year-old. And if you look into yourself and have a look at what it is that happened for you, then I'd love to see that in the comments. What happened to you when you're between 28 and 30 and your Saturn return? Because it's a predominant thing. But in the aspect of awakening, there's a part of this understanding of the cycles that maybe the universe has more control over, or driving the bus more than what the part of that you think that you may have control. And I remember I when I was a young man, I had to fight really hard for my existence, in a sense. So, well, in my 20s, I brought a lot on myself by poor decisions or poor expectations that I didn't meet up to. But I had my own business. I worked myself through an apprenticeship, which took nearly, I think that was the apprenticeship, it was almost, took me nearly 10 years to complete, which is usually about 4 years though. But it gave me so much more. It gave me the ability to follow things all the way through. It was like, sometimes there's big obstacles in the way. I messed it up a few times by just being, doing the wrong thing by employers, like, maybe, my attitude, or, doing, the wrong thing, or not being appreciative of the gifts or the way that they were helping me. So all during that time, I was up until my Saturn return, I'd worked my way up to be in my own subcontracting business, which was a really, really good accomplishment for me. So I was kind of 27, 28, and I bought myself a whole bunch of tools, and I had my subcontracting business. I was had my wife, and I had 2 kids, and I was a king. I had everything that you could want as a 28-year-old. Things are really looking good. I'm got a nice car. I've got family. We were secure enough. However, my Saturn return came along and pulled the rug from underneath me. I remember feeling like I'm a king in this. I'm a king. I've got so many resources that I can work with. I've worked my way up. I've got to the top. I've got, on my 28, I'm thinking I've got the whole life sorted. But that wasn't to be, the building industry that I was in at the time, they had a downturn. I probably wasn't up to scratch in the way that I was doing things. My commitment level probably went in like I normally do. I have a tendency to go in really, really hard on new projects, and then find myself waning towards the not the ending, but more of the when the rubber really needs to be hitting the road, right? So have to learn now to balance that out a little bit and not be so gung ho about it. But at the time, it was, I'd set myself up for success. I was standing on this precipice of my own created greatness of hard work, and the downturn in the building industry, and I got called into the office, and I was told, we're downscaling, and because you were the last person to come on as the subcontractor, we're going to let you go, right? And so I just kind of fell in a heap and went, oh wow, that's what am I going to do? So I'm sort of contemplating what's my next move, like what can I do? Obviously, there's got to be something. What my next move would be, and then I got home, and I remember I spoke to my partner at the time, and I said, I've and it may have been like, I mean, she knew more people inside the place where I was working as well. So, there could be conversations that were happening around, me and all that sort of stuff. But I wasn't happy doing the job. So I wasn't really happy at home either. Like I was pretty, I was tired. I was exhausted and I wasn't being supported. So it felt like, it was a difficult time. So I lose my job or lose my contracting business from one meeting, and then I go to the next meeting, which was leave the place and go to home, and I walk in and I say to my partner, that they've let me go. I'm not really sure because I didn't really have a backup plan. What's going to happen next? And she said, well, before we get to that, she said, I just don't love you anymore, and I want you to move out. And I'm thinking, where did this come from? Like, what was that all about, right? So that was real hard for me. Like, I didn't see it coming. I mean, there was unrest and, there was stuff that was happening, and I was prepared to, go through hell and back to be in this situation with the family. But the universe had a different idea. Like, there was this things that I needed to learn. And I lost it all. I had to sell the thing. I had to get all my taxes done. I had to do all this stuff, and I had nothing at the end of it. And, a couple of people were, there was a couple of guys that kind of threw me a bone and said, come and help, do some stuff with me. However, they were the ones that were seeing my wife, or my partner on the side anyway. So it was kind of like, there was this whole thing that was happening around me, and so I had to reinvent myself. I sat down. I remember one night, and I was like, somebody was talking, and they said, well, none of this is working for you. What are you going to do now? You've got to make a decision. You've got kids. You've got two sons, and you've got to work this out. And so after it all was, settled down, and handing back all my equipment, and selling stuff and falling on my sword basically as the king, I signed up for another course. I started to do a totally different reinvention of myself. I went into horticulture and understanding botany and stuff, and so that was what was the big turning point for me. The big awakening was that I had to shift from what I thought was the be-all to end-all, my kingship, which was my business and how I worked to it, and what my future was with my family. Was all that was taken away, and I had to make a decision. What is your next move? What's your next move going to be? And so I signed up for a TEoF course and did that for the next 12 months, which led into another opportunity, which was an amazing opportunity. It was like a work placement at the end of the TEoF course. So it was in a Surfers Paradise, apartment block where I could work with team on doing computer work, which was great on garden designs. We did a lot of maintenance around the place, but it was just being really good to be around people that were doing really well. Like if you're living in a high-rise apartment in Surfers at that time back in the 90s, you would have been doing okay. So yeah, there was that, and then there was the finding my own place. So once I moved out of my partner's place, I moved into my dad's house, which I hadn't. We've been living with my dad for 10 years. But that was great because I got to know him, and that was part of my healing too, was to get to know him, and this is all part of my awakening, because I'm like going, I visioned when I started having children that I wanted to get to know my dad, because he's been estranged from me since I was like a teenager, and since I was 11 or 12. So I could see where my anger was coming from. My anger was coming from the lack of the feeling of that the world was mean, and that it was like, I needed to defend all myself, and I tend to be a sensitive type too, so I feel people, I feel emotions deeply, and they move me to the point where that they consume me. So I moved in with my dad, and then I worked myself up into a to get myself a nice little three little bachelor pad that I got for myself and the boys, my two sons at the time. There was a bachelor pad that I had called, it was in Petrel Avenue in Surface, in Mermaid Waters, or Mermaid Beach, which is like 2 streets away from the Gold Coast, which is probably a $1 million home right now, or might even be knocked down and rebuilt. But I remember creating that, like that's what was waiting for me on the other side of that turmoil, that whole experience of, business, losing the business and going into my own, my wife saying, or my partner saying, because we never got married, and my partner saying, we that she doesn't love me anymore. She wants me to leave. And then me having to move back in with my dad, which I hadn't known for a long time, and then finding a relationship with him, and then getting into my own place, which was amazing, and then buying, being a father, having the resources again, to be able to look after my sons, and then from then I found another partner. So I spent 5 years by myself. So that was basically what it is. So the 30-year-old me, from 27 to 30, went through this big awakening time as well. And I'd love to hear about your spiritual awakening, anything that happened. The other thing that happened on the back of this as well is that I got a new partner after 5 years. I moved to Miami, and this partner just happened to be part of, or be involved in personal development, and she spoke to my path. She spoke to my journey and how it was. She sat down with me and looked at my astrology. She taught me how to understand what my astrology was. She taught me how to, that I am more than the experiences that I've experienced. And from then, I built up and then I've been building ever since. And I hadn't stopped building until I got to my 50s. So so from 30 to 50, I was just in build mode, and it felt really good. There was like a lot of working with personal development. There was like, men retreats where I'd work on specific things about my past that I could let go of, and stuff. But nothing was a real awakening, like something that was just, that took me like it did back when I was 13, like when I was in my 30s. So now, as I'm 53, and that's what I'm going to do in my next video, is how the awakening in this process is connected to all of the awakening processes that I've been through. So it's just, I say this because I hope it helps someone. I hope it helps someone out there that's going through their process, because the first 2 times I went through it, there wasn't a lot of people while I was inside. Like, I think I'm about halfway through a spiritual awakening. But during the first 2 times, I didn't really have somebody that could speak to me on the journey. They spoke to me in my needs, but there was nothing about my journey that was spoken about, and how come I had to do it myself and alone. And so, yeah, I'm wondering if this helps for starters, if there's anybody out there that's watching this video and think I needed to see this video, Shane, let me know. Let me know that I'm on the right track. Let me know that what I'm saying has resonance for you, and that maybe, us being fathers and the evolution of fatherhood, that we can share our stories and learn how legendary we are, because we're creating something that's going to combat everything else that's not happening in the world, right? So our stories and our experiences are breadcrumbs for other people to come through. So look forward to the next video. It's going to be, on my 53s, 52s, 53, and what looks like being stuck in the middle of an awakening. So anyway, thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time.